Within a vast universe spins a tiny planet, home to a diverse human family, connected but contentious, divided by fear of the unknown. The portion largely influenced by the three Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, have suffered sibling rivalry for centuries. Jews and Christians are quite familiar with each other's belief systems. The third, Islam, is little known or understood in the West. And so, Food for Thought Productions is pleased to present the author of several books on Islam, past and present, including Two Faces of Islam, and editor of a number of other books on this subject. Mr. Armen Saginian, Executive Director of New Horizons, the project of the Council for Secular Humanism. Here is Mr. Saginian with our producer, Lee Baker.
With us because all of a sudden we Americans are all involved in the Middle East and with the Muslim world, Islamic world. And when you gave me these books to read, it was like a revelation. So we talk about some of the background of Islam. Can you give a little, give us a little brief history of the man and the movement?
Before Muhammad, we had a bunch of tribes that were wandering here and there. Most of the time they were in war with each other. At the time of Muhammad's birth, the area within Mecca that is that black box or huge big cube they called Kaaba. At that time, it was the place where all the tribes kept their idols. And they would come once a year to visit the idols.
To worship idols.
To worship idols and visit them.
I see.
And any tribe or group that was running the place used to be paid homage to take care of the place. So at that time, Muhammad's tribe, Quraysh, was the caretaker of Kaaba.
I see.
Amongst all,
it was like
it's like a huge big cube, black
cube
color.
To hold the idol, I see. Represented Allah.
Not Allah, no, not Allah yet.
I see.
There were over 360 idols over there.
I see.
Out of 360, one of them was the greatest one. Its name was Allah.
I see.
The greatest idol was Allah. Mm-hmm. And supposedly he had 3 daughters. And those idols were over there too. Now, when Muhammad later on started preaching monotheism, he chose Allah, his own tribe's idol, to be the big God. Mm. That's the way Allah came in. Mm-hmm. Now let's going back on the Muhammad. The first 6 years of his life was a very troublesome time. Muhammad was epileptic.
Epileptic.
Yeah.
I see.
Now and then he would go into trance. There are very many small...
Oh, the trances were really epileptic fits.
Well, they were fits, but sometimes he created or pretended to be going into trance to be connected with Allah through Jibreel. We'll come to it. But during this time, twice the lady who was taking care of him brought back saying that this is possessed by demons. She was asked, please keep, but finally at 6 years old, she brought back, I will not take care of him anymore. A few months later, she died, meaning mother, Amne died. And Muhammad's care was left to his grandfather.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's get along to where he is starting to work or starting to be
Not yet, he's not working yet.
Well, we have to move along because we want to cover some ground here.
I'll go very fast. The care was given to grandfather. Within 2 years, grandfather died. Then he was left over to Abu Talib, which was his uncle. And uncle had a son called Ali, who later became a very close friend of Muhammad. When he was living with Abu Talib, he had to work. Initially, before he was about 10, 11 years old, he was tending the camels and the goats. Then when he became an early teenager, he had to travel with the caravans taking goods from Mecca to Medina. Mm-hmm. There, his informal education began.
On these trips, he would meet various people.
Yeah.
And that's how he got his education.
The traveling time between Mecca and Medina at that time was between 3 to 5 weeks. Every night when they camped, they formed some sort of corral and sat down before sleeping. They would talk, tell stories. Among the caravans that would come and camp, there were caravans that were going from east to west or from south to north or vice versa. There were Zoroastrian preachers amongst them, Christian preachers, and Jewish preachers. So he started learning about religions.
I see.
And he decided that's a very good life.
He
You don't
decided
work.
to start his own.
Right.
I see.
That's when he decided that's a very good life. You don't work, you don't do anything, you just talk, and people take care of you.
I see.
That's the way his education began.
Okay, let's move up to where he becomes a married man. What was his pattern of marriages, and how did that? I understand his first wife was very wealthy, so that was an opportunity to finance his plans.
Muhammad worked for quite a while with the caravans going north and south. In one of his travels, when he came back to Mecca, in the southern part of Mecca, close to Bazaar, in a merchant's place, met with a woman who was one of the greatest traders of that time. Her name was Khadija. She had 4 previous husbands who had all died and left her a lot of wealth. Supposedly, her wealth was so much that she had 8,000 camels carrying goods for herself and others. Now, those figures are very exaggerated because to feed 8,000 camels, you need very big fields they don't
Right.
have.
So in other words, he got a rich wife.
He got a very rich wife.
I see.
So from that point on, he didn't have to work for anybody else. He was carrying her wife's goods to Medina and bringing it back. And anybody who conducts that kind of business, he has to be literate to read and write and figure.
I see.
Therefore, whatever they claim, Muslims claim that he was illiterate, that's
That
baloney.
couldn't be true.
No, it could
He
not
was
be
involved
true.
with business even as a teenager.
He had to.
I see. Okay, now, but he had a pretty interesting marital history beyond this one wife.
While he was married to Khadija, he didn't fool around. He was
he
very,
didn't?
he didn't. He was very faithful husband to Khadija and very faithful servant to Khadija. He was conducting all her businesses. And finally Khadija died, passed away. His womanizing era began after Khadija's death. And he married and married and married, possessed and possessed and possessed. And supposedly, to some accounts, he had only 16 wives. To some other accounts, he had up to 19 wives.
I understand he only allowed 4 legally.
That is for somebody else, not for Muhammad.
Oh, I see.
Muhammad can do whatever he pleases.
Oh, I see. He also married for more money other wives as well.
Yes, he did. He had to, after he preaching for 13 years and gaining nothing but a handful of followers. One of them was his cousin, one of them was his wife, one of them was his manservant, one of them was his slave, so very
He was
close.
promoting a religion, in other words.
He was trying to promote religion,
I see.
a religion that he
And
claimed
13 years.
came to him from Allah through Gabriel.
How successful was that?
While he was preaching in Mecca,
I mean, how successful were his efforts to promote a religion?
in the first 13 years, it was a total flop.
Is that right?
He didn't manage anything. It came to a point that his tribesmen, the Qurayshi, who were caretakers of Kaaba, told him either stop or we'll kill you. He did not stop. They came to kill him. He was informed that they are going to come tonight. He put Ali in his bed, and with the rest of them, he ran to Medina. They came, found Ali, didn't kill him. He was already on his way to Medina. From that point on, his life changed. He abandoned being a very benevolent preacher. he became a highwayman. And he started,
A different kind of organization.
well, he didn't have organization yet. He formed organization. He had to, because there was no more wife
But
to
I
support
mean,
him.
a different, he was looking for different followers, not just the spiritual. Is that?
He had to. There was no other choice.
Okay.
He finished his wife's wealth within a few months. There was nothing left. He sent his handful of followers to become highwayman. Then he realized that in Medina there was a large Jewish tribe, quite wealthy. Told them, come and join me, accept my religion. I'll make Jerusalem our Kaaba or our Qibla.
Our
Qibla is where
headquarters,
you
like
face.
our headquarters, is that it?
No. Let's say if in Christianity we had decided that we are going to take Jesus' birthplace as the point towards which we face to pray,
Oh,
so
I
that
see.
we'll have direct line to Allah
The
or
focus, the focus of our religion.
God. All right.
I see.
He chose Jerusalem because it was their center. They said, no, we don't accept it. You are an impostor and we will not accept your preached religion,
The Jews,
Jews.
right.
So he had no choice but to eliminate Jews, because as long as Jews who were an established religion were there and were opposing him and calling him impostor, he was going nowhere. But yet his dreams were to make himself a king or a prophet king for Arabs, because he wanted to become rich and he wanted to be total ruler of all Arabia. Therefore he started killing the Jews and looting all their goods. From there, his new life began. He became a very successful commander of armies. In all his life, he ran 86 wars. In 83 of them, he personally participated. He had very many people killed. He himself, we know, killed one person. We know that he eliminated 5 Jewish tribes from Arabia.
Now, we know that wars are expensive. How did he finance all these wars?
It was a beautiful formula that he had innovated, and it went like this.
He was a
would-
businessman.
He was a thorough businessman, and he was a very good army commander.
So
He was
how
a very
did-
good strategist. He was a very good womanizer.
Right.
In everything that he did, he was first class.
was
The only
good.
problem is that whatever I say is first class from the point of view of a Muslim, it's a great compliment. From the point of view of non-Muslim, it is totally unethical.
I see. Okay, but how did he finance these armies?
He would tell the highwaymen, the robbers, the killers, come and follow me. We'll go and fight and conquer. Whatever you take as a loot, you keep 80% for yourself.
For all of the fighters, for all of the
Well,
soldiers.
as to how within themselves they distributed, that's immaterial. But the
Okay.
point is that 80% of all the loot stayed with the people who robbed, and they gave 20% to Muhammad for leadership and protection and inclusion. So he assembled an army very easily, very fast. People came for looting. It was their avocation anyway. Now it became their business.
It became a career.
It became a
They
career.
were career soldiers.
They were, so to speak, mercenaries.
Yes.
The money to be paid to them came from whatever they robbed. And in one war, when they won the war without anybody pulling out any sword, Muhammad did not give a penny to the soldiers. Said that you didn't pull a sword, you didn't came into the town riding, so the whole thing belongs to me. And he took the whole 100%. That's the way he kept his army.
How he kept the armies going. And so this was kind of an informal organization all within one man, right?
I wouldn't call it so, because he had already formed an oligarchy.
And what is an oligarchy?
Oligarchy is when you have a group of people who come together for one specific purpose and one specific reason, and they all have the same common interest, and they run the
manage
things.
as a team.
Yeah.
And so he gathered a strong team.
He gathered the best of the strategists, best of the fighters, best of the richest people, And with those, he married daughters of some, sisters of the others. And with that, he made a connection. You mentioned, or somebody mentioned that sort of mafia. Yes, sort of mafia. In this form that in one way or the other,
You're
they
with
were
us,
independent.
or you're with us, or we're going to attack you, in other words.
Beg pardon?
You're going to be part of us, or you're going to be part of who we...
Well, it was very simple. He told, for example, Osman, either you come and join me and become my relative through marriage, or I will stop your career, and I will not let you make any money at all. So it was the best thing to do, because they will be sharing all the loot that they can take in. They will be keeping whatever they have, and they'll be gaining some more.
Well, that's like the mafia. You want protection.
Yeah.
You pay us. Otherwise, we'll smash your
Right.
business. And
That's the way he
yeah.
put together his central organization, the people who could finance him, people who could provide him with fighters, people who themselves would fight, people who could strategize, draw plans for war.
Well, who set up? Oh, where did the rules and regulations come from? How did the Quran come into being? Isn't that the book that has the rules and regulations?
Before you go on the book of Quran as center of regulations, today's Islam follows three different things. One of them is Sharia, which is the laws, heavenly laws in the Quran. One of them is Sunnah, one of them is Hadith. Now, Sunnah and Hadith are this. Sunnah is tradition, how things were done.
I see.
Hadiths are stories about Muhammad himself and his conduct. Anytime they came with something that there was no rule for it in the Quran, and there was
No justification in
no other way, they would
Previous
glance, see, how
They can
did
do-
Muhammad handle it? So at the time of his death, there were about 400, close to 400, slightly over 400 hadiths, stories about Muhammad. Long after Muhammad's death, people, in order to justify their actions, came and wrote stories about Muhammad. He did
Oh,
this, he did that, he did that.
this, so it
3,
makes it-
4, 500 years later, they came and said, I met this guy who was talking with this fellow. He was in such and such place. He was raising such and such uncle of his who was working with that guy who told I saw Muhammad doing this. So they wrote
So
it
it's
down.
okay.
That became the law.
I see.
Now, instead of 400, now we have over 8,000 stories.
I see.
So book after book after book, lie after lie, they accumulated, and they have over 8,000 of them. And Sunnah is another version of those. The Sunnah does not have to do anything with the stories about Muhammad. It has to do how people do things or did things. So that became part of the law. So we have three different laws. We have the Sunnah, we have the Hadith, and we have the Sharia in the Quran.
Well, the hadiths are laws that were after Muhammad had already died. Is that it?
Okay, now let's see, let's talk about
other
the
people
laws.
Adding, in other words, my understanding is that he was the one who, how did he get the verses? How did he decide about that? You were going to...
Anytime he had any new occasion that there was no precedence for that, he went into trance, into epileptic seizure, and came out and said that Gabriel came to me and brought this from Allah. And he recited as to what was given to him. For example,
Oh, so the laws came from Allah
Supposedly.
through Gabriel to Muhammad.
Muhammad.
I see.
Muhammad, either he wrote it down or he had scribes who wrote it down,
I
but
see.
they were never
That's
put
where the
together as a
verses-
book.
That's where the verses came from.
That's where the verses supposedly came from.
Right.
They were loose leaflets,
Oh, he
here
would
and
just
there,
write a little note on a piece of paper. I see.
or skin or whatever,
I see. Put it in a drawer.
if there was any drawer,
I
or
see.
saddlebag, or
But
whatever.
they weren't organized.
No, they were not.
I see.
After Muhammad's death, first caliph did not do it, but Osman came to the conclusion that
He
they
was
had to.
part of the team, part of the
He
oligarchy.
was part of all the
I
oligarchy.
see.
Yeah.
And after Muhammad died, what did
He came and collected all those
collected all the verses?
verses.
I see.
And they ended up supposedly with 4 different Qurans. And they decided that they cannot obey 4 different Qurans. They eliminated 3 of them,
Too much.
kept one. And that is the Quran that is being used today all over the world.
I see.
But there were actually
and,
4
and,
of them.
and it hasn't changed? Nothing changes since?
After him, no, nothing has changed.
Okay. What about the so-called satanic verses? Where did they come from? What are they?
Supposedly, one day Muhammad went to Kaaba, that where there used to be idols, and they are not idols anymore. That's God's house. And he uttered some statements that were not supposed to be done. It was totally against whatever he had taught before. His friends got hold of him and said, "Hey, what's the matter with you? Whatever you told them, whatever you had told before, they don't match and we are in trouble." He went into trance, came back, said, No. Those verses that you are talking about, they were given to me by Satan, who had appeared to me like Gabriel. They had to come out of those. They came out of the totality of Quran, but they didn't vanish, they stayed. That is the verses that Salman Rushdie is talking about in his books,
In his
satanic
books.
verses. Yeah.
That's right. Well, the thing is, you know, I was studying these books. I had no idea. This was just such a amazing revelation to me, and so I'm so glad you're sharing some of this. And so in other words, the Quran has not changed, but they've added these hadiths. Is that
That
the way it is?
has not been added to Quran.
Oh,
They are separate books,
those
but they are added to the volume of the laws.
okay.
So laws, Islamic laws today includes Quran, the books of hadiths, and the books of sunnats. All
What
put
about
together.
the satanic verses?
Satanic verses have nothing to do with the laws.
They don't-
It had to
they
do with
don't-
his actions.
But do they? What kind of an impact do they have?
They don't have any.
I see.
The only problem
so
is
when people quote them, they say, "Well, that doesn't matter. That was from Satan." Is that how they?
nobody quotes them. It's just
Well, Salman
nobody
Rushdie-
ever went after that except Salman Rushdie, for whatever reason, chose to go that route, brought that up, and bought a death sentence for himself, and brought an excuse for Khomeini to do whatever he did.
I see.
It was just a misuse of misinformation in a very wrong way and create the international hullabaloo.
Now, you were telling me that Islam is more than just a religion. It's also a government. Is that because they have like a theocracy in Iran? Do they still have that, or is?
Of course they do.
And what does Ayatollah mean? What is that? Is that like the top person in the hierarchy, like the Pope, or what?
No. First, let's look at Islam. Islam basically has got 2 main branches, Sunni and Shia. Majority of the Muslims of the world are Sunni. Minority is Shia. Shia mostly is in Iran. It is an Iranian creation. And outside of Iran, you can find some Shias in Iraq, some in Pakistan, some in Afghanistan. But the rest of them are all Sunni.
In China, we met some in China.
Where?
China,
China.
yes.
Sunnis or Shias.
I forget which it was. One of the
Most
one
probably
of the
they
other.
are Sunnis, not Shias.
Okay,
Shia did not go that far out.
I see.
Only in Shiism you have Ayatollah. Sunnis don't have. In the Sunni world, every city has got one leader who would explain laws to laymen. And they call him Mufti. Each city has got, or a town or township has got a Mufti. In Shiism, on the other hand, which is another problem that comes later in the history, you have Mullah, which is the bottom line. Then you have Hujjatul Islam.
A mullah is the lowest level of professional cleric.
Right.
Is that it? Oh.
Like ordinary
Like
priest.
the local
Local priest of any
Okay.
church.
I see.
Then you have the bishop, they have an equivalent of the bishop. Then you have archbishop, they have equivalent to archbishop. Then you have the head of the whole thing, and they have the head of the whole thing. Each city has got one Ayatollah, maybe, or more, but at least one. Under him, there are few Hujjatul Islams. Then on the bottom, for every single mosque, there is a mullah or maybe more than one mullah. But that's in Shiism only.
I see. Approximately how many Muslims are there in the world? And what are the main countries where they are in enough of a majority that they can influence the government?
Approximately slightly over 1.2 billion Muslims in the world. Majority live from far western shores of Morocco to the eastern shores of the Philippine Island.
Now, the countries that I'm most aware of, that I think are majority Muslim, would be Iraq, Iran, and Saudi Arabia, right?
Saudi Arabia is 100% Muslim.
Is that right?
Iraq,
Would you consider Saudi Arabia theocratic, a theocracy?
right now it is, and it is controlled by Wahhabis. It is, well, they don't call it theocracy, but in reality it's theocracy.
Arman, we're going to have to do another program on what's going on now, because we got
fascinating.
Yeah. So this time we were able to get the background, which was really a lot of news to me, and so let's do what's going on currently in another program.
Okay.
All right. So for now, thank you
It was
very,
a pleasure.
very much. The dangerous face of Islam is demonstrated by Mr. Sagedian in his books with quotes from the Koran. Here are a few examples.
Fight and slay the pagans, but if they repent, that is, accept Islam, and establish regular prayers and practices, open the way for them. Allah is oft forgiving. Allah promises you much booty, that is, spoils of war, that you will capture from the defeated infidels. Fighting is prescribed for you, and though you dislike it, it is possible that ye dislike a thing which is good for you.
Islam has two faces. It is time, past time, to focus on the positive aspects.
For more information on this timely topic, contact Arman Sagedian at the Center for Inquiry West at 4773 Hollywood Boulevard, Hollywood, California. We hope you have found this program intellectually stimulating and that you will continue to investigate the ideas raised here. To connect with other like-minded individuals, please contact any of the dozens of free thought organizations, such as the American Humanist Association, American Atheists, the Center for Inquiry, and Atheists United. You may also email the producer directly via leebaker27@gmail.com. This program has been distributed through the courtesy of Atheists United.